I spent 38 years teaching mathematics and saving every dollar, and when I finally bought my dream lakeside cottage, my daughter's fiancé told me his sister was moving in for 6 months. I smiled and said nothing, but I'd already set a trap that would expose everything he'd been hiding. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The deed felt heavier than paper should. I stood in Gloria Patterson's real estate office in Port Sterling, Michigan, holding it while she congratulated me on the purchase. Outside the window, October rain hammered the sidewalk. "Mr. Harrison, you got yourself a gem," Gloria said, sliding the final documents across her desk. "That cottage has been on the market 8 months. You're lucky nobody else saw its potential." Lucky wasn't the word I'd use. Strategic was better. I'd researched every property within 50 miles of Detroit, looking for something specific: distance from the city, privacy, a place where I could finally breathe after 38 years of teaching algebra to teenagers who thought mathematics was punishment. The cottage sat on Lake Huron's shore, 2 hours north of Detroit. 1,200 square feet, stone fireplace, wraparound porch, private dock. The previous owner had died intestate, and the bank was motivated. I'd paid it $133,000 cash, money I'd accumulated through decades of summer school teaching, tutoring, and living below my means while my ex-wife spent everything I earned. "When are you moving in?" Gloria asked, packing up her files. "This weekend. I'm officially retired as of yesterday," she smiled warmly. "Congratulations, Dennis. You've earned this." I drove north from her office, with the deed in my passenger seat, watching Detroit sprawl give way to farmland and eventually forest. The GPS lost signal twice. Cell service flickered to 1 bar. Perfect. When the cottage appeared through the pine trees, I cut the engine and sat there absorbing it. The photos hadn't lied, but they hadn't captured the silence either. No traffic, no sirens, no voices bleeding through apartment walls. Just waves on the shore and wind in the branches. I grabbed my duffel bag and unlocked the front door. Inside smelled like pine cleaner and old wood. The previous owner's furniture had been removed, leaving empty rooms with good bones, hardwood floors that needed refinishing, kitchen with appliances from the 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, living room with that stone fireplace dominating 1 wall. It was perfect in its imperfection. I unloaded my truck methodically over the next 3 hours, books on shelves, organized by subject, clothes in the bedroom closet, arranged by season, kitchen supplies in cabinets, each item positioned with intention, coffee maker on the counter where morning light would hit it first. By the time I finished, the sun was setting over the lake, painting the water orange and purple. My daughter Rachel called around 7. I was sitting on the porch watching a heron fish in the shallows. "Dad, how is it? Did everything go smoothly with the closing?" Her voice was bright, excited for me. "All signed. I'm sitting here watching the sunset over the lake. I'm so happy for you." Warmth flooded her tone. "You deserve this after everything with Mom and the divorce." The divorce had been 3 years ago. Linda had left me for a dentist with better income and worse character. Rachel thought I'd bought this cottage to heal from that betrayal. She wasn't wrong, but she wasn't entirely right either. "How's wedding planning going?" I asked, steering away from Linda. "Oh, busy. Trevor's been amazing helping coordinate everything." She paused. "Actually, speaking of Trevor, here it comes," I thought. My future son-in-law only came up in conversations when he needed something. His sister Vanessa just lost her apartment. Landlord sold the building. Everyone has to move out by November 1st. She's scrambling to find a place. I stopped rocking in the chair. "Trevor thought maybe she could stay with you temporarily, just until she finds something permanent. Maybe 3 or 4 months maximum." The suggestion landed like a stone in still water. "Rachel, I moved in today. I bought this place to have solitude after 38 years of dealing with teenagers every single day. I know, but Dad, she's family. Well, almost family. Trevor and I are getting married in April. Vanessa's really sweet. She works remotely, so she'd be quiet. You'd barely notice her. The familiar guilt hook, obvious and predictable. This cottage has 2 bedrooms, but only 1 bathroom. I'm not set up for guests. Please, Dad. Trevor's really stressed about this. His parents can't take her because they're in a tiny condo. We can't take her because our apartment is 1 bedroom. You have space. Her tone shifted, cooler now. I thought you'd want to help your future family. I looked out at the lake at the piece I'd just purchased with 38 years of savings. Let me think about it. I'll call you back tomorrow. But Dad, she needs to know by... I ended the call gently but firmly and sat there holding the phone. Somewhere across the lake a loon called, another answered. The sound was haunting and beautiful. Trevor called 30 minutes later. I let it ring twice before answering. Dennis, hey, Rachel said you're thinking about Vanessa staying there. His voice had that salesman's smoothness, friendly but calculated. I said I'd think about it. Come on, man. It's just temporary. Vanessa's got a good remote job. Totally independent. She'll help with groceries, utilities, whatever you need. I bought this cottage to be alone, Trevor. That's not negotiable. Silence. Then his voice changed. Harder now. You know, Rachel and I have been under a lot of financial pressure with the wedding. Her mom isn't contributing anything because of the divorce situation. We were really counting on family support. If Vanessa has to pay for emergency short-term housing, that's money Trevor can't help us with for the wedding. The manipulation was clumsy but effective. Tie Vanessa's housing to the wedding budget. Make me feel responsible for their financial stress. That sounds like a Vanessa problem, not a Dennis problem. My voice stayed level. Family helps family, Dennis. Or are you still too bitter about Linda leaving to understand that? The words hit like a slap. I stood up slowly, phone gripped tight. Good night, Trevor. I ended the call before he could respond. Then I turned off the phone completely and threw it on the kitchen counter. For an hour I stood on that porch breathing deeply, watching stars emerge over the lake. The anger felt clean, clarifying. Linda leaving hadn't made me bitter. It had made me selective about who I let close enough to hurt me. And Trevor, with his manipulative tactics and entitled demands, had just revealed exactly who he was. I went inside, pulled out a notebook I'd used for lesson planning for decades, and started writing. Not emotional venting, questions, strategy, mathematical problems applied to human behavior. If Trevor pushes this hard before the wedding, how much harder will he push after? If Rachel sides with him now, what does that predict for future conflicts? If I say yes to Vanessa, what precedent does that set? I wrote until midnight, filling pages with analysis, timelines, contingency plans. The teacher part of my brain, the part that had spent 38 years breaking complex problems into solvable steps, found satisfaction in the structure. By 1 a.m. I had the outline of a plan. By 2 a.m. I was certain it would work. The next morning, I drove into Port Sterling, a town small enough that everyone noticed strangers. Main Street had the basics: hardware store, grocery, coffee shop, and a law office above the pharmacy. I ordered coffee at a place called Dockside Cafe from a teenager who called me sir and seemed genuinely friendly. "You're the guy who bought the Murphy cottage," she said, not asking. "Word travels fast in small towns." "That's me." "Cool. It's a good spot. My dad used to fish off that dock when we were kids." She handed me the coffee. "Welcome to Port Sterling." After coffee, I walked upstairs to the law office. Margaret Chen, attorney at law. Her office was small but professional. Framed degree from University of Michigan Law School. Photos of property cases. 1. "Miss Chen, my name is Dennis Harrison. I just bought property on Lake Huron, and I need advice about preventing unwanted long-term guests." She gestured to a chair, interest evident. family situation, future in-laws who think they're entitled to stay with me indefinitely. She nodded knowingly. I see this more often than you'd think. Michigan has specific tenant laws that protect even informal residents once they establish occupancy. Tell me what's happening. I explained Trevor's demand, Rachel's pressure, Vanessa's supposed homelessness. Margaret took notes with the precision of someone who'd handled these situations before. If Vanessa moves in and receives mail there, stays 30 days, she establishes tenancy rights. Removing her would require formal eviction, court proceedings, 60 to 90 days minimum. What if I never allow her to establish residency? Then she's a trespasser if she shows up uninvited. But you'd need clear documentation that she wasn't given permission. Margaret leaned forward. Do you have text messages or voicemails where Trevor makes these demands? He called. I can request phone records showing the calls happen. Get those. Also, send Trevor a formal written message stating clearly that his sister is not permitted to stay at your property. Create a paper trail. If they show up anyway, you call the sheriff immediately. How much will this cost? $500 retainer for initial consultation and document prep. If it escalates to actual legal action, we'll discuss additional fees. I wrote the check immediately. One more question. If they do show up and refuse to leave, what's my liability if I simply refuse them entry? If your property is clearly posted as private and you've communicated in writing that they're not welcome, you have every right to refuse entry. They'd be trespassing. She smiled slightly. But Dennis, don't engage in arguments. Don't negotiate. Call law enforcement and let them handle removal. I left her office with clear direction and drove to the county clerk's office. Filed for property line verification and posted no trespassing signs at the road entrance. Everything documented, everything official. Back at the cottage, I composed a text message to Trevor, choosing each word carefully. Trevor, after consideration, I've decided my cottage is not available for Vanessa or any other guest. This is a firm decision based on my need for privacy and retirement. Please make alternative arrangements. Dennis. I sent it and screenshot the message with timestamp. Then I called the phone company and requested records of all calls between my number and Trevor's number for the past week. Documentation. Evidence. The mathematician in me appreciated the precision. Trevor's response came within 10 minutes. Seriously? You're going to do this to family? Rachel's going to be devastated. Don't be surprised if this affects our relationship going forward. I screenshot that too. The threat was barely veiled. Do what I want or lose your daughter. I replied once more. My decision is final. I've consulted with an attorney. Any attempt to occupy my property without permission will be treated as trespassing and reported to law enforcement immediately. His response was immediate. You're making a huge mistake. I didn't reply. Instead, I called Sheriff William Oakes, whose number Margaret had provided. Sheriff Oakes, my name is Dennis Harrison. I own the Murphy Cottage on Lake Huron. I need to report a potential trespassing situation. His voice was gravel and patience. What's going on, Mr. Harrison? I explained calmly. Future son-in-law demanding his sister stay at my property without permission. Refusal documented. Concern they might show up anyway. You got written proof you told them no. Text messages, attorney consultation, everything documented. Smart. Listen. You call us if anyone shows up uninvited. We'll handle removal. Don't engage them yourself. Don't argue. Just call. That's my plan, Sheriff. Welcome to Port Sterling, Mr. Harris. Sorry your first week involves family drama. Appreciate the support. I hung up feeling prepared. Rachel called an hour later. She was crying. Dad, Trevor just told me what you said. Why are you being so cruel? Her voice broke on the last word. I'm not being cruel. I'm protecting my space and my retirement. I bought this cottage to be alone, but it's just a few months. Vanessa has nowhere to go. That's not my responsibility to solve, Rachel. She's an adult with a job. She can find housing. Trevor says you threatened to call the police on his sister. I said, if anyone shows up at my property without permission, I'll report it as trespassing. That's not a threat. That's a boundary. She was quiet for a moment. I can't believe you're choosing a house over your family. The words stung because they were designed to. I'm choosing self-respect over manipulation, Rachel. There's a difference. You're going to ruin my wedding. Trevor's family is going to hate you. Is that what you want? I want to live in the home I bought with money I earned over 38 years without people trying to guilt me into surrendering it. Fine. Her voice went cold. But don't expect me to keep defending you to Trevor. You're on your own. She hung up. I sat on the porch watching waves roll in, feeling the weight of that choice. Losing my daughter's support hurt, but surrendering to Trevor's manipulation would hurt more and longer. That evening I received an email from someone named Vanessa. Morrison's subject line, please reconsider. The email was long, emotional, describing her desperate housing situation, her respect for my privacy, her promise to be invisible and helpful. It was well written and completely irrelevant. I replied briefly, Ms. Morrison, my decision is final. I've consulted with an attorney and documented this decision. Please make alternative arrangements. Dennis Harrison. 2 days later on a Thursday afternoon, my security camera alert pinged. I'd installed 4 cameras after returning from Margaret's office, covering all approaches. A white sedan pulled into my driveway. 3 people emerged, Trevor, Rachel, and a woman I didn't recognize, Vanessa, presumably. Trevor carried 2 suitcases. They walked toward the cottage like they owned it. I stepped onto the porch, phone already recording video. You're on private property. You need to leave immediately. Trevor stopped, his expression mixing surprise and anger. Dennis, come on, be reasonable. Vanessa just needs. I was clear in my text messages. This property is not available. You're trespassing. Rachel's face showed hurt and anger. Dad, please, just listen to us. I've listened. My answer was no. It remains no. You have 60 seconds to get back in that car before I call the sheriff. Vanessa, a thin woman in her 30s with desperate eyes, stepped forward. Mr. Harrison, I promise I'll. 50 seconds. I raised my phone. I'm recording this. You were told explicitly not to come. This is documented trespassing. If this story reminded you of the injustices you've seen, follow the channel and turn on notifications, because wherever justice is delayed, a new revenge story begins. Trevor's face flushed red. You're really going to do this? Call the cops on your own family? You're not my family. You're my daughter's fiancé who thinks manipulation and threats constitute family obligation. 30 seconds. Rachel started crying. Dad, I can't believe you're doing this. 20 seconds. My voice stayed level, calm, the way I'd spoken to disruptive students for 38 years. Trevor, get your sister and leave now. They stood frozen for a moment, disbelief evident. Then Trevor grabbed Vanessa's arm roughly. Come on, we're leaving. But this isn't over, Dennis. Not even close. They drove away in angry silence, dust rising behind their vehicle. I immediately called Sheriff Oakes. Sheriff, it's Dennis Harrison. The trespassing situation I report. 3 people just showed up uninvited. I recorded everything. They've now left, but I wanted you aware, in case they file a complaint against me. Good thinking. Send me that video. If they come back, call immediately. Will do. Thank you, Sheriff. I emailed the video file to his office address, then sat down on the porch, feeling the adrenaline slowly fade. Phase 1 complete. But Trevor's parting words echoed. This isn't over. Wait, you think that was the end? No, that was just Trevor testing boundaries. The real revenge was what I'd been planning since the moment he made threat. 4 days passed quietly. I worked on the cottage, refinishing floors, painting the kitchen, building bookshelves, productive work that didn't involve family manipulation. Rachel didn't call, Trevor didn't call. The silence felt deceptive. Tuesday afternoon, Sheriff Oakes called me. "Dennis, got something you should know. Someone filed a complaint with Adult Protective Services claiming you're living in unsafe conditions and possibly suffering from mental decline." My hand tightened on the phone. "Let me guess who filed it." "Complaint's anonymous, but I can make educated guesses. APS has to investigate. Inspectors coming Thursday morning." "Understood. Thank you for the warning." "Listen, I've seen this tactic before. Family members weaponizing APS when they don't get their way. You just cooperate, show you're competent and safe. It'll resolve." After hanging up, I sat analyzing the strategy. Trevor couldn't force his way onto my property, so he was trying to have me declared incompetent. If successful, he could argue I needed oversight, possibly even guardian management of my affairs. It was sophisticated escalation. I called Margaret Chen immediately. "Margaret, someone filed an APS complaint against me. Anonymous, but obviously Trevor. Inspector coming Thursday." "All right, here's what we do. Get a complete medical evaluation today." "I'm serious, Dennis. Drive to urgent care right now and get physical and cognitive testing. You need documentation proving you're completely competent." "On my way." At Port Sterling, urgent care. Richard Walsh was efficient and understanding. Mr. Chen called ahead, explained the situation. "Let's be thorough. The examination took 2 hours. Blood pressure, blood work, cognitive function tests, depression screening. He asked me to solve mathematical problems. I did them easily. He asked about my daily routine, financial management, property maintenance plans. I answered everything clearly, precisely. When finished, Dr. Walsh typed a letter on clinic letterhead. "Dennis Harrison, age 61, is in excellent physical and mental health. Patient demonstrates superior cognitive function, sound judgment, and no signs of diminished capacity or mental illness. Patient is fully capable of independent living and complex decision-making." He signed it, stamped it, handed me copies. "That'll be $380. Good luck with your family situation." "Thank you, doctor." The APS inspector arrived Thursday at 9 a.m. Sandra Torres, professional and thorough, carrying a tablet and official credentials. "Mr. Harrison, I'm following up on a welfare complaint. May I come in?" "Absolutely. Would you like coffee?" She seemed surprised by the cooperation. "No, thank you, but I appreciate the offer." I gave her a complete tour. The cottage, clean and well-maintained, kitchen stocked with fresh food, bathroom organized, bedroom tidy, my financial documents, organized in labeled folders, property maintenance schedule posted on the refrigerator. "This is very organized," Sandra said, photographing everything. "I was a mathematics teacher for 38 years. Organization is automatic." I handed her Dr. Walsh's letter. She read it carefully. "This is dated yesterday. Very current." I anticipated false allegations and got evaluated immediately. "That's strategic thinking." She took more notes. "Can you walk me through your daily routine?" I did, describing wake-up time, morning walks along the lake, property maintenance projects, weekly trips to town for supplies, and social interaction. Everything purposeful, healthy, demonstrating competence. "Mr. Harrison, I've seen genuine cases of elder neglect. This isn't one. You're clearly competent, living safely, managing everything responsibly. What happens now?" I file my report. Case gets closed. The complaint was unfounded. She paused. "Off the record? This looks like a family dispute where someone used APS as a weapon. It wastes resources we need for real cases. Can you note that in your report? I'll state the complaint appears motivated by property dispute rather than genuine welfare concern." After she left, I called Margaret. APS investigation went well, but Trevor's escalating. What's next? We file harassment charges and apply for a restraining order. Come to my office this afternoon. At Margaret's office, we compiled everything. Text messages, recorded videos, phone logs, APS complaint, witness statements, building a comprehensive case file. This is excellent documentation, Margaret said. We're filing for a restraining order, preventing Trevor from contacting you, coming to your property, or filing false complaints. We're also pursuing charges for abuse of process. Timeline: restraining order filed tomorrow, hearing next week. If granted, any violation means immediate arrest. The hearing happened the following Wednesday in Port Sterling's small courthouse. I sat with Margaret. Trevor sat with a lawyer who looked expensive and annoyed. Judge Patricia Brennan, mid-60s with sharp eyes, reviewed the evidence. Mr. Morrison, you demanded Mr. Harrison house your sister. When refused, you showed up, uninvited, at his property. When removed, you filed a false APS complaint. Explain your behavior. Trevor's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client was attempting to help family members during a housing crisis by trespassing and filing false government complaints. Judge Brennan interrupted. That's not helping. That's harassment, Your Honor. Emotions were high, and Mr. Morrison, do you dispute that Mr. Harrison clearly told you his property was not available? Trevor hesitated. No buts. He said no. You ignored it. Then you weaponized government resources. She looked at Margaret. Miss Chen, what are you requesting? Restraining order preventing all contact, Your Honor, and we request the court refer this to the prosecutor for abuse of process charges. Granted. Miss Morrison, you are prohibited from contacting Dennis Harrison in any way. No calls, texts, emails, social media, or third-party contact. No coming within 500 feet of his property. Violation means immediate arrest and contempt charges. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Trevor said quietly. Good. Mr. Harrison, I apologize. You've dealt with this. Your property rights are absolute. We left the courthouse into November sunshine. Margaret smiled. That went perfectly. What happens with Rachel? The restraining order affects her too, since she came to my property. She wasn't named specifically, but she needs to understand that helping Trevor violate the order makes her complicit. That evening Rachel called. Her voice was small. Dad, Trevor told me about the restraining order. He earned it through his behavior. I know. I watched the video of us showing up at your cottage. I saw how we looked. She paused. I'm sorry. I let Trevor pressure me into ignoring your boundaries. Relief flooded through me. Thank you for saying that. Are you okay? Really okay? I'm better than okay. I'm finally living the retirement I planned. Peacefully, on my terms. Can I visit? Alone? I want to see the cottage. I want to apologize properly. I looked out at the lake, at the sunset painting the water gold. You're welcome anytime, Rachel. Just you. We'll have coffee on the porch and watch the herons fish. She started crying, but different tears now. I love you, Dad. I love you too, honey. After hanging up, I sat on the porch, watching stars emerge. The cottage felt more like home now, defended and protected. Trevor was legally restrained. Rachel was beginning to understand, and I had what I'd wanted all along. Peace, space, and the freedom to live without manipulation. 3 weeks passed in beautiful quiet. I refinished the hardwood floors, installed new light fixtures, and built a reading nook by the living room window overlooking the lake. Every evening, I sat on the porch with coffee, watching the sun disappear behind the trees. This was the retirement I'd imagined during 38 years of teaching. Rachel visited twice, alone as promised. We talked carefully at first, avoiding Trevor entirely, discussing safe topics like my renovation projects and her work as a physical therapist. But during her second visit, over coffee on the porch, she finally brought him up. Trevor's been different since the court hearing, she said quietly, staring at her mug. Angrier, he blames you for embarrassing him in front of a judge. I kept my voice neutral. I didn't embarrass him. His own behavior did that. I know, But he's convinced you orchestrated everything to make him look bad. He's obsessed with it, Dad. It's kind of scary. Something in her tone made me look at her carefully. Scary how? She hesitated. He's been researching Michigan property laws, talking about loopholes and technicalities. He keeps saying the restraining order doesn't matter because there are other ways to make you regret what you did. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. Rachel, has he threatened me specifically? Not exactly, but he's been making comments about how cottages on isolated lakes are vulnerable, how accidents happen, how property values can be destroyed if the right problems emerge. She met my eyes, fear evident. I think he's planning something, Dad. Have you told anyone about these comments? Just you? I didn't know if I was overreacting. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. Maybe I'm paranoid. You're not paranoid, you're observant. And Trevor's pattern of escalation supports your concern. I pulled out my phone and called Margaret Chen, putting it on speaker so Rachel could hear. Margaret, it's Dennis. I'm here with Rachel. She has information about Trevor making threatening comments. Can she give you a statement? Absolutely. Put her on. Rachel described everything. Trevor's obsession with property laws, his comments about vulnerable, isolated properties, his statements about making me regret the restraining order. Margaret took detailed notes. Rachel, would you be willing to testify to this if necessary? Rachel glanced at me, then back at the phone. Yes, I would. Good. I'm documenting this as evidence of continued harassment through proxy intimidation. Dennis, increase your security measures immediately. More cameras, motion sensors. Consider a security system with monitoring. After hanging up, I looked at Rachel. This changes things. If Trevor's planning property damage, or worse, you need to distance yourself from him legally and physically. I've been thinking about that, she admitted. I've been thinking about it a lot, actually. She took a breath. Dad, I'm calling off the wedding. The words hung in the November air. Are you sure? I asked carefully. I'm sure. This whole situation showed me who Trevor really is. The manipulation, the entitlement, the escalation when he doesn't get his way. I can't marry someone like that. She started crying. I wasted 2 years on him. I moved my chair closer and put my arm around her. You didn't waste anything. You learned who he was before making a permanent mistake. That's not waste. That's wisdom. Mom's going to be furious. She loves Trevor. She thinks he's successful and ambitious. Your mom's opinion stopped being your responsibility when she decided being a dentist wife was more important than being your mother. Rachel laughed through tears. When did you get so wise? 38 years of teaching teenagers. You learned to spot manipulation patterns. She stayed for dinner. We cooked together in my small kitchen, falling into an easy rhythm that reminded me of when she was young and would help me prepare meals while her mother worked late. After she left, I drove into Port Sterling and stopped at Northern Security Systems. The owner, a former Marine named Jack Hobbs, listened to my situation with professional interest. You want comprehensive coverage, cameras, motion sensors, glass break detectors, and a monitored alarm system that contacts both you and local law enforcement. What exactly? How soon can you install? Tomorrow, if you want. This is serious? Someone's making threats about isolated properties being vulnerable. Jack's expression hardened. Then we make your property a fortress. Motion-activated lights, sirens, the work. Anyone approaches uninvited. They'll know they're being recorded and law enforcement is being notified automatically. Do it. The installation took 2 days. 8 cameras covering every approach, motion sensors on all entry points, glass break detectors on every window, a control panel that would make a spaceship jealous. When Jack finished, he walked me through the system. This is military-grade security, Dennis. You're protected. Thank you. One more thing. He handed me a business card. That's my personal cell. You have any problems? Any concerns at all? You call me directly. I'm 15 minutes away and I don't sleep much. I shook his hand, grateful. I appreciate that. 4 days later, on a Tuesday night around 11 p.m., the alarm shrieked. Motion sensors triggered on the north side of the property. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the camera feeds. Two figures, dressed in dark clothing, were approaching the cottage from the tree line. One carried something large, a gas can. My heart hammered, but my mind stayed clear. I hit the emergency alert button. Jack had installed. Sirens erupted from speakers mounted on the cottage exterior. Floodlights blazed to life, turning night into day. The two figures froze, caught in the lights like deer. Then they ran, dropping the gas can and sprinting back toward the trees. I called 911 while the cameras recorded everything. This is Dennis Harrison at 4738 Lakeshore Road. Two intruders just attempted to approach my cottage with what appears to be a gas can. They fled when the alarm activated. I have video footage. Sheriff's Department is en route. Are you safe? Yes. The alarm scared them off. They ran north into the woods. Sheriff Oakes arrived with 2 deputies within 12 minutes. I showed them the video footage. The two figures were clearly visible, faces caught in the floodlights for several frames before they ran. I know one of them, Deputy Martinez said, pointing at the screen. That's Kyle Brunson. He's been arrested twice for vandalism. Works odd jobs around Port Sterling. Sheriff Oakes studied the footage carefully, and he's carrying a gas can toward your cottage at 11 p.m. That's attempted arson. Can you identify the second person? I asked. Not yet, but we'll find them. Kyle's not smart enough to stay quiet when questioned. Oakes turned to me. Mr. Harrison, this is escalation beyond harassment. Someone hired these men. Given your situation with Trevor Morrison, I'm guessing we know who. The restraining order prohibits him from contacting me, but not from hiring others to commit crimes. That's a separate charge. Conspiracy to commit arson. If we can connect payment from Trevor to Kyle, he's looking at 10 to 15 years in prison. They collected the abandoned gas can as evidence, took detailed statements, and promised to arrest Kyle immediately. After they left, I sat in my living room. Security monitors showing empty property, and called Margaret. Margaret, someone just tried to burn down my cottage. 2 men with a gas can. Security system scared them off. Sheriff has video and identified one suspect. Jesus, Dennis, are you okay? I'm fine. Angry but fine. This is what Rachel warned about. Trevor's executing his threats. Can we prove he hired them? If the sheriff finds financial connection, yes. Meanwhile, I'm filing for an emergency protective order upgrade and criminal harassment charges. This crosses every line. What would you do at this point? Write it in the comments. Your thoughts are as important as the story itself. The next morning, Sheriff Oakes called with an update. We arrested Kyle Brunson at his apartment, found text messages on his phone from someone named Chid Morrison offering $2,000 for a, quote, consulting job, unquote. Kyle's already talking. Says Trevor approached him at a bar, said he needed help, quote, teaching someone a lesson, unquote, about respecting family. That's conspiracy. That's gift-wrapped evidence. We're arresting Trevor this afternoon. Conspiracy to commit arson, solicitation of criminal activity, violation of restraining order. He's going to jail, Dennis. Relief and something darker flooded through me. What happens to Rachel? She's been planning to break off the engagement, but this will accelerate everything publicly. That's between them. But legally, she's clear. She came forward with warnings before this happened. That actually protects her. I called Rachel immediately. Honey, something happened last night. I explained everything. The attempted arson, the arrests, Trevor's imminent arrest. She listened in silence. Oh my God, she whispered finally. He really did it. He actually tried to burn down your house. The security system stopped it. But Rachel, Trevor's going to be arrested today. This is going to be public. News coverage, social media, everything. You need to prepare yourself. I'm coming over, right now. I don't want to be anywhere near our apartment when the police show up. She arrived an hour later with 2 suitcases. I packed essentials. I'm not going back there. We sat on the porch and I made her tea. She was shaking. Not from cold, but from shock and anger and grief over who Trevor had turned out to be. I almost married him, she said. I was 6 months away from marrying someone who'd hire people to commit arson. But you didn't marry him. You saw who he was and made the right choice before it was too late. Only because he showed his true self by attacking you. What if he'd waited? What if I'd married him and then found out? You can't think that way. You learned in time. That's what mattered. My phone buzzed with a text from Sheriff Oaks. Trevor Morrison, arrested at 2:47 p.m., charged with conspiracy to commit arson, solicitation of criminal activity, violation of restraining order. Bail set at $100,000. He's not making it. I showed Rachel the text. She read it and started crying. Not sad tears. Relieved tears mixed with anger and grief. Good, she said fiercely. I hope he sits in jail and thinks about what he did. The local news covered the story that evening. Port Sterling man arrested for alleged arson plot. Trevor's photo appeared on screen, professional headshot from his real estate business. The contrast between that polished image and the mugshot they showed next was stark. Rachel watched it with me, her expression hollow. Everyone's going to know. My friends, my coworkers' mom. Your mom, I said carefully. Have you told her? Not yet. I've been avoiding her calls since I started doubting Trevor. She's going to blame me for not supporting him. Or she'll surprise you. People sometimes show up when it matters. Rachel looked skeptical but called Linda anyway, putting it on speaker. Mom? Something happened. Linda's voice came through sharp and impatient. Rachel, I've been trying to reach you. Did you see Trevor was arrested? What nonsense is your father spreading now? Rachel's jaw tightened. Dad's not spreading anything, Mom. Trevor hired someone to burn down Dad's cottage. There's video evidence. Text messages. He's guilty. Silence. Then quieter. What? Trevor tried to have Dad's property destroyed because Dad wouldn't let Trevor's sister move in. He's been escalating for weeks. I'm leaving him. The engagement is off. Rachel, don't be hasty. Trevor's under stress. This is probably a misunderstanding. There's video of 2 men approaching Dad's house with a gas can at 11 at night, Mom. That's not a misunderstanding. That's attempted arson. Another pause. Well, your father must have done something to provoke this. He's been impossible since the divorce. Rachel's expression went cold. Goodbye, Mom. I'll call you when you're ready to be supportive, instead of making excuses for criminal behavior. She hung up. We sat in silence for a moment. I'm sorry, I said. Don't be. I needed to hear that she'd choose him over what's right. She wiped her eyes. I'm staying here for a while if that's okay. I can't go back to that apartment, and I need space from Mom. You can stay as long as you need. We'll convert the second bedroom into your space. Over the next few days, we fell into a routine. Rachel worked remotely during the day while I continued renovation projects. Evenings we cooked together and sat on the porch watching the lake. She started talking about finding her own place nearby, maybe a small rental in Port Sterling. I like it here, she admitted. It's quiet, people are friendly, and I'm close to you without being on top of you. I'd like that, I said, honestly. Having you nearby, but both of us having our own space. That's healthy. Trevor's preliminary hearing happened 2 weeks later. Margaret attended with me. Rachel chose not to go, not ready to see him. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage showing the 2 men approaching with the gas can. Text messages from Trevor's phone to Kyle, offering payment. Kyle's testimony that Trevor specifically hired them to, quote, scare the old man into regretting his decisions, unquote. Trevor's attorney, an overworked public defender, tried to argue entrapment and lack of direct intent. Judge Brennan wasn't having it. Mr. Morrison, you hired criminals to approach Dennis Harrison's property with gasoline in the middle of the night. The intent is obvious. The evidence is clear. Trial date set for February 12th. Bail remains at $100,000, which you have not posted. You'll await trial in custody. In the hallway afterward, Trevor's attorney approached us. Mr. Harrison, my client wants to discuss a plea agreement. I'm not the prosecutor. I can't negotiate charges. No, but your victim impact statement affects sentencing. Trevor's willing to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for your statement supporting reduced sentencing. I looked at Margaret. She gave a small shrug. Your choice. What's he offering? I asked. Full restitution for all your security costs and any property damage. Written apology. Permanent restraining order. He'll never contest. Agreement to serve minimum sentence with no early release request. In exchange, you provide a statement acknowledging his remorse and supporting rehabilitation over maximum punishment. I considered it. Trevor had tried to burn my house down. He'd terrorized me, manipulated Rachel, weaponized government resources. He deserved maximum punishment, but maximum punishment was 10 to 15 years. Minimum was 5 to 7, and there was Rachel to consider. I need to discuss this with my daughter first. Of course, we can meet again next week. That evening I explained the offer to Rachel while we prepared dinner. What do you think? She asked. Should you help him? I'm asking what you think. He's your ex-fiancé. This affects you emotionally even if not legally. She chopped vegetables in silence for a moment. I think people should face consequences for their actions. Trevor tried to destroy your property and could have killed you if that fire spread. He deserves serious prison time. But I also think 7 years is still serious. And if he's willing to plead guilty, admit what he did, actually show remorse, maybe that's enough. Maybe maximum punishment isn't always the answer. I recognized her reasoning. She was a physical therapist. She believed in rehabilitation. If I agreed to support reduced sentencing, I'm doing it because I think it's right, not because you ask. You understand that? I understand, and I respect whatever you decide. After dinner, I called Margaret. I'll provide a victim impact statement supporting reduced sentencing on 3 conditions. Trevor pleads guilty to all charges. He provides full restitution immediately, not after sentence, and he signs a permanent restraining order that survives even after his sentence is complete. I'll communicate that to his attorney. The agreement was finalized within a week. Trevor pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit arson, solicitation of criminal activity, and violation of restraining order. He was sentenced to 7 years with possibility of parole after restitution paid immediately, $8,400 for my security system, $2,000 for legal fees, $5,000 for emotional distress. Total $15,400 paid from what remained of his business accounts before creditors could seize them. The victim impact statement I read in court was brief. Trevor Morrison's actions were criminal and dangerous. He targeted my property because I refused to surrender my boundaries and autonomy. His behavior was calculated, escalating, and potentially deadly. However, I believe in the possibility of rehabilitation. I believe 7 years in prison, combined with mandatory counseling and permanent legal restrictions, can accomplish both punishment and potential reform. I support this sentence not because I've forgiven him, but because I believe justice should serve society's long-term interests, not just immediate vengeance. Trevor was led away in handcuffs. He looked at me once before leaving the courtroom, not with anger, with something like exhausted resignation, understanding that he'd lost completely. After the hearing, Rachel found me in the parking lot. Her eyes were red but clear. "Thank you," she said, "for handling it the way you did, for being better than he deserved. I didn't do it for him. I did it because living with vengeance is exhausting. This way I can move on, knowing he faced real consequences. But I didn't become someone I'd hate." She hugged me. "I'm proud to be your daughter." 4 months later, I stood in the cottage watching spring arrive on Lake Huron. The ice had broken and the water moved freely again. Rachel had found a small house in Port Sterling, 3 miles down the shore road. We had dinner together twice a week, alternating locations. She'd started dating someone, a physical therapy colleague who seemed kind and respectful. I'd met him once. He called me sir and asked permission before assuming anything. Good signs. The cottage was complete now. Floors refinished to honey-colored perfection. Kitchen updated with new appliances. The second bedroom converted into a proper guest room for when Rachel or future grandchildren visited. The security system remained, silent guardian recording nothing but wildlife and weather. I didn't need it anymore, probably. Trevor was in prison. The threat was over. But I kept it anyway. Reminder that boundaries protected are boundaries preserved. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. Mr. Harrison, this is Kyle Brunson. The name sent a jolt through me. Why are you calling? I'm out. Served 18 months. Got released early for cooperation against Trevor. I'm calling because my parole officer said I should make amends to people I hurt. Subscribe and stay tuned so you don't miss any true revenge stories. Sometimes, even silence is the strongest form of revenge. I walked out onto the porch, looking at the lake. What do you want, Kyle? To apologize. What I did was wrong. I knew it was wrong when Trevor offered me money. I did it anyway, because I needed cash and didn't think about you being a real person in a real house. I'm sorry. The apology was clumsy but seemed genuine. Are you working? Got a job at the hardware store in Port Sterling, stocking shelves, helping customers. It's honest work, pays less than quote consulting unquote, but I sleep better. Keep sleeping better, Kyle. Keep doing honest work. That's your amends. Yes, sir. Thank you. He hung up. I sat on the porch as the sun set, painting the lake in shades of orange and gold. A heron fished in the shallows. Somewhere across the water a loon called. The sound was haunting and beautiful, and exactly what I'd wanted when I bought this place. 38 years I'd taught mathematics to teenagers, taught them that problems have solutions if you break them down into manageable steps, taught them that showing your work matters more than getting the right answer quickly, taught them that integrity isn't about being perfect, it's about being consistent. I'd applied those same principles to protecting this cottage in my retirement. Break down the problem. Trevor's manipulation, show the work, documentation, legal strategy, evidence gather, maintain integrity, protect myself without becoming cruel. The solution wasn't perfect. Rachel had lost 2 years to a relationship with a criminal. I'd spent thousands on security and legal fees. Trevor was in prison, his life destroyed. But the alternative, surrendering my boundaries and autonomy to keep false peace, would have been worse. Would have taught Rachel that manipulation works. Would have taught Trevor that threats achieve results. Would have taught me that I didn't deserve the retirement I'd earned. My phone buzzed. Text from Rachel, coming over for dinner tomorrow. I'm bringing David. He wants to learn more about your teaching career. I smiled and replied, absolutely. I'll make that chili you like. Tell David to bring questions. I have stories. I sat on the porch until the stars emerged, watching the lake reflect moonlight like scattered diamonds. The cottage was quiet. The property was secure. My daughter was happy and building a healthier relationship. Trevor was serving his sentence. Kyle was attempting rehabilitation. Everything had resolved, not perfectly, but appropriately. Justice mixed with mercy. Consequences balanced with second chances, boundaries defended without becoming walls. This was what retirement was supposed to feel like, not escape from life, engagement with life on terms I chose, not isolation from family, connection with family members who respected boundaries, not bitterness over past betrayals, peace found through present integrity. I went inside, locked the doors from habit, not fear, and sat in my reading nook with a book I'd been meaning to read for years. Outside, the security cameras recorded nothing but moonlight and wind. Inside, I read until midnight, coffee going cold beside me, finally living the retirement I'd planned. The keys to this cottage had felt heavy that first day in Gloria's office, heavy with possibility and uncertainty and hope. Now they felt different, lighter, earned, symbols not of escape but of arrival. I'd spent 38 years preparing for this, teaching students, saving money, building the foundation for a life I'd actually want to live. And when someone tried to take it from me through manipulation and eventually through criminal violence, I'd protected it, not with anger or vengeance, with strategy and documentation and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're right. Trevor had bet that I'd surrender to guilt or fear. He'd lost that bet catastrophically. Rachel had learned that real love respects boundaries and that walking away from toxicity is strength, not failure. I'd learned that retirement wasn't about being old and tired. It was about having the wisdom and resources to protect your peace. The cottage settled around me, wood creaking in familiar patterns. Through the window I could see moonlight on the lake, steady and eternal. I finished my chapter, marked my place, and went to bed in the home I'd bought and defended and earned. Tomorrow, Rachel and David would come for dinner. We'd eat chili and tell stories, and laugh about things that mattered. Trevor would wake up in a cell serving year 1 of 7. Kyle would stock shelves at the hardware store, trying to build a better life from his mistake. And I'd wake up in my cottage, drink coffee on the porch, watch herons fish in the shallows, and live the retirement I'd spent 38 years working toward. Not perfect, not without scars, but mine, completely, absolutely, defended and earned, mine, and that was worth everything. Thank you for watching. If this story showed you a different face of justice, like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next revenge story.